Hello, Dereck. I'm so happy that you agreed to come on to the Aunty Lous Hour. You know what? I'm just going to start off by saying I bow to the divine in you, my brother. Thank you. I really respect your time coming all the way from Uganda for us to talk about HIV. Tell me your story, Dereck.
Okay, thank you, Lois. My name is Dereck. Most people call me Uncle Drake at Dawn. I'm a person living with HIV, and I do a lot of advocacy around HIV on social media. I'm a comms person, working with a Uganda network of young people living with HIV, which is a network that brings together young people living with HIV across the country. And our biggest role is to mobilize and coordinate young people living with HIV within the country.
Yeah.
And especially my role is to make sure that I develop content for young people living with HIV that goes online, so like in terms of supporting them, in terms of how they can get support in case they have gotten it, if in case they haven't gotten their refills.
Yeah.
And also I do some part-time work around social media influencing, but that's around health.
Yeah.
And also good at content creating, and I'm also a very good fan of cameras because I love taking pictures all the time.
Yeah. Oh, that's just amazing. So if we get right into it, how long have you been living with HIV?
So this year it is 30 years I've been living with it, and I got to know my HIV status. That was in 2009. And that's now closer to some years. But I started taking my ARVs, that was in 2004, and the reason why they never disclosed to me, I think I was very young by that time, which would pick up my which would bring issues related to mental health. And by that time, being young, so someone cannot disclose to you. So the person telling me that the medication I'm taking is for headache, stomach.
But did you like hide your status when you first found out, or did you come straight out?
In 2009, when they disclosed to me, I felt like it was the end of me. But when I disclosed to a few colleagues of mine at school, supporting me, there's a lady that was my classmate, and by the time I disclosed to her, she opted to support me, reminding taking my medication until I had to locate to another district. That was that is Ginger. Then I started now disclosing publicly because now I had already gotten the skills on public.
So I'm curious. So in relation to where you live, how is HIV looked at? Is there still stigma, and how intense is it?
Right now, someone to test for HIV currently here in Uganda. One, they look at HIV as something very bad. Whereby it comes to issues related to stigma and discrimination. So that's why, like, a few people come out and disclose their HIV status, you'll find that those are the only ones that are empowered, and they have skills they have the skills to help other people who are living. But right now, as we speak, if someone tests today positive for HIV, one, they'll go into hiding. Secondly, if you go to some areas that in some rural areas, you'll find that some of them even it's hard for them to come to the facility to pick medication, things like that. So the stigma discrimination is very high, same in Uganda and the whole of Africa.
And you know what you said about picking medication? I'm hearing that around the world. I live between London and Romania, and I understand that, you know, even in Romania, some people are so frightened to be seen picking up medication. And when you look at the extreme of people that are out on social media saying, hey, I've got HIV and it's okay, and people that are so frightened that they can't pick up their medication. And if you don't pick up your medication, it can affect your health if you're not taking your medication regularly. And I think I wanted to make that point to show the extremes of what HIV can do and how long it takes for someone to get their head around it. Just one thing I'd like to say, you know, I've got a particular interest in young people, and my heart goes absolutely out to any young person that has to deal with HIV. And one of the things that I want to do, Dereck, is, you know, advocate and support young people as well, in particular to say it will be okay, because it's hard enough growing up, isn't it? It's hard enough trying to navigate a relationship with a guy or a girl. That's hard enough, let alone when you've got HIV and you're going to have to try and navigate that. I was talking to someone just yesterday, somebody from California, from the Well Project. I was talking to her, and she was saying that, you know, we were talking about how we navigate talking about sex when you've got a new relationship, you know. Before, I suppose, you know, years and years ago, you know, you'd ask, you know, the man would maybe, you know, instigate it. But now, especially for women who have HIV, you know, they have to think to themselves, you know, how do they manage that? You know, so yeah, I'm just saying with young people, that's where my soft spot is.
Yeah, because if you look at now, like the statistics around Uganda, you'll find that most of the people who are highly affected with HIV here in Uganda or Africa, Africa as a continent,
yes,
we find that the women are the ones who have the highest burden of. They are the ones who are highly affected with HIV simply because of their vulnerability on in terms of getting services or in terms of getting the basic needs they want. Also, if you look at that age bracket of adolescent girls and young women, it's also still very tricky for us, whereby some of us are still into programming for some of the few activities. And you'll find that a project sometimes does not only focus on the entire country, it only focuses on a few districts and that are highly burdened with HIV.
Yeah.
But it's still for us as programmers and advocates that we need to reach everyone, but due to the donor funding that we rely on, it's a bit tricky. Up to now, like I find it very that they cannot focus to each and every district. I think last month I was in northern Uganda, and a few things that most of the young people were sharing. So it's still around the pill burden, the stigma and discrimination associated with the HIV, and then there's also poor nutrition.
Yeah,
so
of course.
These two things can they both relate. But at the end of the day, this young is taking medication on an empty stomach, which is still a big challenge. Now, how they accept not that. So it's a bit tricky. If I tell you how I managed to survive the whole thing, you find that we come from different families, whereby my dad used to, and let me say my parents used to provide for me. But at the end of the day, we all come from different families, and the father or mother provide for the kids in terms of the nutrition, and also reminding them on how to take the medication, reminding them about the appointment days. So
you know, like there's a lot there. I think particularly for people who don't understand the intricacy of HIV, there's a lot there that you've just spoken about. And I'd love to kind of unpick some of that. But some of the things that you spoke about in terms of medication and taking medication on an empty stomach and the impact that has on medication, you know, then we've got the stigma element and the stigma in relation to culture, you know, and the stigma in relation to being female, and in terms of young people. You know, we also spoke about, what else did you say? What were the other main issues that you were saying apart from those three?
The other issues are if this young person clocks, let me say, when you're transiting from being a child, then you come to adolescent stage, then come to, you transit to become a young person, then transit to become because right now, to my side, I'm an adult. But the biggest problem right now we have with adolescents and young people is when you transit to become an adolescent and a young person, there are always issues related to relationships, whereby this young person or an adolescent would love to have a relationship with someone, but at the end of the day, you have to disclose. And currently, right now in Uganda, have a law that if you intentionally infect someone HIV, you either pay a fine of 5 million or you go to jail for 4 years. And
so I wanted to, sorry, carry on.
So if you look at now the background of this adolescent, where he's coming from, you find that it's a bit challenging, that it's a bit tricky for them, that they are coming from a poverty line, they are coming from a poverty family, and it's a bit tricky, cannot raise the 5 million, which means that this adolescent or young will either the family will either sell off a piece of land that they have to raise the money.
So one of the things I want to ask you is that U equals U. Does that come into play in Uganda?
Currently I have a few colleagues of mine doing this that campaign of U equals U, which is something. But one thing I've noticed with the U equals U, one is the message packaging that we have here in Uganda is not suitable for. Is not really suitable to reach the targeted audience. You'll find that someone will mention that if you're undetectable, you cannot transmit the HIV. So automatically, that if a young person living with HIV gets to hear that, automatically you run into a relationship. At the end of the day, you infect someone, which is a bit tricky. But the packaging of information, because currently I'm sitting on the committee for the committee of messagings on the Uganda AIDS Commission, and one thing we agreed as a committee is sitting down and agreeing on which kind of messages that can be cleared that suit the targeted audience for the young people. But currently, people are doing. Are doing the messaging, they're doing the campaigns, and it's good enough. One of my former bosses is part of that team, and we agreed on a few things before pushing up for the messaging. But to my side, the U equals U. Yes, it's good, and the treatment that we get, or the treatment that we are on as people living with HIV. At the moment you are undetectable, then automatically you cannot transmit. But packaging information that to reach the targeted audience is still a very big challenge here in Africa.
Wow. Okay. So before we go, is there if there was somebody listening to this who has recently been diagnosed with HIV, what message would you give them? Being, if you don't mind me saying, a heterosexual man being diagnosed with HIV, what message would you give them, Dereck?
One, I think is to start medication as soon as possible,
Mm-hmm.
because the medication is the God, is the actual God that we have currently here in is the medication that we are taking is the God that we have here on earth. And if you do not take well the medication, or if you do not start on a medication immediately, then you're lowering your CD4 and giving room for HIV to multiply in the body. But one biggest thing should be that if you test today HIV positive, automatically just start off medication, because that's the only God that we have currently. Even if because we have a tendency in Africa that if someone tests today positive, he will hide off, and then at the end of the day, they'll still tell the person that, you know what, you're being witched, your witchcraft is real, and what. But for HIV, there's nothing like witchcraft. The only thing is test today. If you find that you're positive, just start off medication.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Dereck, thank you so much, my brother. I really appreciate your time, and I'd love to talk to you again and we can dig a little bit deeper. But for now, I'll let you get on with the wonderful work that you're doing, and I send you lots of love.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Take care, darling.
Okay.
Okay.
Take care too.